body language. So is there scope for showing body language? Is there more scope or less scope to show body language? Less scope. So when you have less scope to show body language, what is that one, one thing which we have to exercise to our advantage? When we don't have scope for body language, what is it we need to exercise to our advantage? What is it we need to leverage more when we don't have? I'm trying in my own ways to do that right now. So when you don't have scope for body language, to wave your hands and so on, yeah. So how should you adjust your speaking? How should you adjust your speaking, Varshita? No, good command over the language is something which is always going to be important. So my question is, when you are answering questions and the panel is sitting remotely, what kind of adjustment you need to make to the way you speak? Okay, so let me sum up what you people are saying. You have to speak a bit more loudly. You have to speak a bit more confidently. Okay, you have to modulate your voice to your advantage. So one way to modulate your voice is to speak a little bit more loudly, a bit more clearly. Maybe speak a bit slowly so that the panel can hear. So the way we speak might make a very big difference in online interview. Just keep that in mind. But the online assessment and other formalities, obviously, it doesn't matter. Whether we are face to face, remote, and so on. So now let me talk about some trends in our industry, and then I'll speak about some of the skills which are becoming very valuable, in today's world. So there are two words, which everybody has been using, for the last 3-4 years. So what is that? What are the two words we keep hearing whenever we talk about today's industries, today's companies? We say that companies are going through something, industries are going through something. So what are the two words, which really have become part of our everyday vocabulary? Atmanirbhar is a Prime Minister's slogan. So I'm not talking about the Prime Minister's slogan. I'm talking about at a corporate level. What are the two words which we are hearing? I'm not talking about COVID. This has been there. This has been going on for some time. Yeah. So what is that change in technology? What are the buzzwords we are hearing? If there is one word, if you are to single out one word which has become very popular, yes, automation is definitely part of what I'm saying. But what is that term which encompasses things like automation? Okay, is it so? We don't say a revolution. What is it we say in the industry? Revolution has slightly political connotation. So instead of revolution, what do we say? What do we say instead of revolution? That companies are changing dramatically, industries are changing dramatically, the ways of operating are changing, and the way the products are designed is changing very rapidly. The way the products are being manufactured is changing. The way the products are being distributed is changing. The way the marketing is happening is changing. So what do we call this? Okay, so I was actually referring to a phenomenon called digital transformation. Have you heard of this term, digital transformation? Digital transformation. And what we are doing today is an example of digital transformation. Can you imagine? I'm pointing at the professors in the meeting today. Can you imagine, say, about 10-15 years back, that we could have had an event like this, where students joined from wherever it was convenient, and the speaker also joined from his own home and so on. And then we had a meeting like this in which hundreds of people are taking part. It would have been very difficult to visualize such an event, say maybe 10 years back or even 5-6 years back. But today we are all sitting here, and even though it is not exactly the same as face-to-face, but somehow we are able to make it happen, make it successful, and so on. So digital transformation is a buzzword today in the industry. So in companies like Cognizant or TCS for that matter, we'll keep mentioning this point. Our job is to help our clients with digital transformation. So about 10 years back, Cognizant came up with a slogan which said that 4 different technologies together are going to play a very important role in this digital transformation. So we identified 4 different technological trends, and we said the convergence of these 4 trends will really help us in achieving digital transformation. So these 4 trends were these 4 trends, we coined a term called SMAC, S-M-A-C, SMAC. So any idea what does term SMAC stand for? S-M-A-C. What does S stand for? What does M stand for? What does A stand for? What does C stand for? Let me start with C. Maybe you will be able to answer that very quickly. What does C stand for? C is an integral part of digital transformation. So S stands for social, absolutely, as Sampada mentions. What does M, A, and C stand for? I thought you might answer C. C stands for cloud, okay? C stands for cloud. M stands for mobile, that's right. And A stands for what? A stands for analytics, okay? So social, mobile, analytics, and cloud together form this term called SMAC. And we were the first company to actually speak about digital transformation by saying that SMAC will change the way the world is operating. Now, the phrase SMAC has undergone some minor changes in the way we project this trend these days. So today in Cognizant, we talk about 4 big, battlegrounds, 4 big areas where companies really have to be good in case they want to survive and become stronger in the coming years. So the first of these 4 battlegrounds is what is called data, which is nothing but AI, analytics, machine learning, and so on. The second is IoT, Internet of Things. The third is the cloud, and the fourth is digital engineering. So I'll speak briefly about each of these four things. But let me ask you, if data, which is nothing but artificial intelligence, analytics, machine learning, and so on, IoT, Internet of Things, then we have the cloud, and finally we have something called digital engineering. If these are the 4 battlegrounds, can you tell me which is the super battleground, or which is the battleground on which the other battlegrounds are being fought? Which is the battleground on which the other battlegrounds are being fought? Which is the foundational battleground, without which it's very difficult. Today, if you want to collect data, you want to process data, you want to analyze data, you want to develop a product, you want to launch a business, and so on, you cannot do it without a foundation. What is the foundation? Which is the foundation? The cloud. The cloud is the foundation for everything we do. Now, why is the cloud the foundation? So digital technologies have been around for a long time. They are not new. But how are today's digital technologies different from yesterday's? So computing itself is a digital phenomenon. It has been there for quite some time. So how is today's world different from the world of, say, 30, 40 years back? Yeah. So what has changed about the way we handle data and the way we process data? What is it we have today which we did not have maybe 30, 40 years back? So if people are making the point, so let me just build on what you are saying. That what has really changed the paradigm is the way we store data, the way we collect data, the way we store data, and the way we process data has suddenly become much easier. Today, are you realizing that we have tons and we can store data very easily, we can collect data very easily, and we can analyze data very easily. And cloud is what enables us to do all these things. So today you can put gigabytes of data on the cloud without a problem. We can process data in the cloud. Can you give an example of how cloud enables us to process data? Many of you spoke about AI, analytics, and so on. Can you give an example of how the cloud enables us to, cloud almost stores a lot of data. How does cloud enable us to process data? How does cloud enable us to process data? Can you give an example? Have you heard of Google Cloud Platform? What is there in Google Cloud Platform? With Google Drive, you can store data. Yeah. So what is there in AWS or Google Cloud Platform, which enables us to process the data? What do these technologies have? These cloud offerings have? Have you heard of something called TensorFlow? Have you heard of something called TensorFlow? What does TensorFlow do? What does TensorFlow do? What is Keras? What is Keras? It is nothing but artificial intelligence APIs. You don't have to build your own, model. You can use TensorFlow to do a lot of AI. There's nothing but a set of APIs, as Debash is mentioning, and you can do that. Now, have you heard of Amazon SageMaker? That enables you to develop, various kinds of machine learning models. There's something called Amazon Recognition and so on. Google Translate, for example, is another example. So there are so many of these APIs and stuff available on the cloud, which enables us to do things like convolutional neural network and recurrent neural network and so on. So cloud is really a big thing, and without a doubt, if you want to ask me where are the biggest career opportunities today, I would straight away say it is the cloud. Cloud is where many of you will find exciting opportunities to work. So if you are already familiar with the cloud, very good. If you're not familiar with the cloud, take some more interest in things like AWS, GCP, Azure, and so on. We'll come back to that a little bit later. Analytics is a very important, technology which we are using today. Earlier, when we talk about analytics, we used to think about mean, median, mode, some simple statistical terminologies. But today, we have got very powerful tools with which we can use analytics. So, can you name some commonly used analytics techniques? And when you talk about analytics and statistical learning are kind of intertwined. So let me ask you a more pointed question. What is the kind of, so whether you call it analytics, you call it statistical learning, you call it machine learning, they're all interrelated. They're all different variations of the same thing. So let's talk about statistical learning, machine learning for a couple of minutes. So if you take suppose the independent variable is very clearly defined and the dependent variable is also clearly defined. So the independent variables x1, x2, x3 are clearly defined and the dependent variable y is also clearly defined, and you are trying to study the relationship between y and x1, x2 up to xn. What kind of learning is this called? This is called supervised learning, as Debashish Tripathi rightly mentioned. This is called supervised learning. Suppose the independent variables are available to us, but we don't have a very clearly defined dependent variable. All the x1, x2, x3 we have, but we don't have a clearly defined dependent variable. This is what is called unsupervised learning. Okay, and what is the kind of learning you find in situations like the driverless car, autonomous car, where it is very difficult to teach the car directly something. The car has to keep trying, learning by trial and error, keep making mistakes, and based on feedback, keep learning to improve. So if something works, do more of that. Something doesn't work, do less of that. Keep learning by trial and error. Keep learning by doing. What kind of learning do we call this? This is called reinforcement learning. Okay. So three broad categories of learning are supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforcement learning. Okay. Have you heard of something called, there are two kinds of regression which are very commonly used. There is one kind of regression in which you try to calculate the dependent variable if the independent variables are made available to you. And linear regression, as Soumya mentions, is a variation of this. Now, what is the regression you use to classify data? I want to know, is the patient condition serious, not so serious, or not at all serious, or is the probability of this person having cancer high, moderate, low? Is the chance of this customer defaulting on the loan, is it high, moderate, or low? I want to classify, my data into buckets. What is this called? This is called logistic regression. Okay. Now, what is the difference between logistic regression and cluster analysis? Logistic regression is a technique called classification. What is the difference between logistic regression, which is classification, and cluster analysis? Is cluster analysis supervised or unsupervised learning? Is cluster analysis supervised or unsupervised learning? Is classification supervised or unsupervised? Cluster analysis is unsupervised learning, okay? Because you don't know what are the categories. Whereas classification is supervised learning. You have clearly defined classes and you're trying to put the data in them. So I'm just trying to give you these examples to show that you have to take a bit more interest in the subject of analytics. And you are being students, being young, being technically very sharp, you can learn a lot. Even now, in the remaining few months of your education, if you have not started, you can learn that. If you already know something about it, do more of that. So let me ask you one more question. When you set up a regression model, there is one particular thing you need to be very careful about. You have a lot of independent variables, and then using that, you define the dependent variable. So what is that one thing which can make your model less effective? It can make your model, you have to eliminate the outlier. And among the independent variables, what is the problem you might run into? One is you have to remove the outliers. That is a very good point. And about the independent variables, what is it you need to do? What is it you need to check about the independent variables? What happens if there are too many independent variables? Suppose you use more independent variables than what you need, then what happens? Suppose you have more independent variables than what you need, then what problem will you find? You will find there is correlation among the independent variables. You may run into issues like multi-collinearity and so on. So there are techniques. Exactly. So what is overfitting? Overfitting means you are trying to fit the given data more and more accurately. So as a result, so when you overfit, that means you are trying to make the line pass through every single point in your data set. So, in your regression equation, the line will not pass through all the points. But when you try to make the line fit all the points, then you have a problem. You are trying to overfit. So when you overfit, what is the problem you will run into? What is the practical implication of overfitting? What is the practical? It will misbehave in the sense that the other data may not fit in very well. In contrast, when you do underfitting, that too many data points fit the line, you may find that the model might behave better with other sets of data, but with this data it is not behaving properly. So anyway, so just to give you a flavor, then of course we have IoT. So why has this term IoT become so popular? What is the significance of IoT? Why are we talking more and more about IoT these days, Internet of Things? What is the big deal about IoT? What is the big thing about IoT? How many human beings are there in the world? What is the population of the world? Okay, about 7.8 billion, okay? About 7.5, 7.6 billion, maybe it could be 7.8. Now, if you got 7.5 billion people, how many computers, how many PCs or how many laptops will there be in the world? On an average, 1 or 2 per person. It's unlikely one person will have 3 laptops and 4 laptops. Okay, you may have 1 or 2 laptops. Okay. But when it comes to devices, when it comes to gadgets, when it comes to machinery, is there any limit on the number? When it comes to PCs, there is a limit. But when it comes to gadgets, whether it is a mobile phone, the pen which you use, the mouse which you use, the electric bulb you use at home, the refrigerator you use, the washing machine you use, there are so many gadgets, in the world. And in a machine, every single part is potentially a thing which can be made intelligent and so on. So IoT has become important because while the data generated by PCs and human beings is limited, but the data generated by the gadgets and by the devices is enormous. Now, when these sensors and when you put a sensor on an object and it starts generating data, now that data is of no use unless you can collect it, process it, analyze it, and so on. So for this, again, you need the cloud. Without the cloud, you cannot process the IoT data, right? So then finally, we have what I mentioned, digital engineering. So what is the aspiration of every company today? What is the aspiration of every company today? Whether it's an airline company, a hospitality company, a hotel industry, you take any company, any industry, all the senior executives, all the CEOs, they have an aspiration. What is that? What do they want their company to become? They want to become digitally enabled, but they're all wanting to become software companies. They want to become a software. Every company wants to become a software company. So I'm a software company which is in the business of pharmaceuticals. I'm a software company in the business of education. Baidu is a software company in the business of education, to give an example, right? So everybody wants to become a software company. Now, what is it we can learn from software development? So when we say digital engineering, it's about incorporating the best principles of software development. So if you look at the product software companies, what are the things they do which are good practices which we probably need to learn from? So what do the software companies do so well, which other companies find other industries find difficult to do? How do product companies develop software? What is that mindset or the methodology with which they develop software? The software product companies. Agile, okay? Agile methods of software development. Agile means in an agile world, are the requirements fixed or are they dynamic? In an agile world, are the specifications requirements clearly defined or are they dynamic and they're dynamic and they keep changing? So the requirements of the market keep changing, but the product has still to be you still need to launch the product. And so you have to keep launching versions of product, version 1, version 2, version 3, and so on. And if you want to launch a product, so he's going to the market quickly, becoming an important part of success today. Is time becoming a very important part of success? Do companies need to go to the market very quickly with their product, or can they take years and years to develop their product? What is the better product? Quickly learn from experience, keep making improvements, or take 5 years, 6 years and develop the perfect product and then launch. Develop the product quickly. Okay. So the software comes. So to enable to develop the product quickly, you need to requisition the environment, set up the environment very quickly. That is where the cloud comes in. The cloud provides all the facilities for us to be able to develop the product. And so coming back to the cloud, as I mentioned, cloud is a place where move to Q&A. So we talked about the cloud. The cloud is a big opportunity today. There are a lot of requirements for cloud certified people. So if you can, either you can get certified, if you can spend a little bit of money and get certified, it may be a good investment to make. Or what you can do is at AWS account, learn how to spin off a virtual machine. Can somebody explain what is a virtual machine? What is a virtual machine? Have you heard of this term, virtual machine, VM? Okay, a virtual machine is a virtual machine. I think Prabhu knows the answer to the question. Virtual machine is a machine which is sitting in the cloud, but you can control it with your own laptop or a desktop. So the impression of that machine is sitting on your laptop, and you can control that. But the machine itself, the server itself, is sitting in the cloud. So you basically create a machine which is lying in the cloud, and you are able to do whatever you want with that. So how to spin off a virtual machine, how to retire a virtual machine, play around a little bit, you might understand. Similarly, look at the features in the cloud. The cloud has got so many features available, be it big data, be it analytics, be it AI, and so on. You can just play around and you learn how to use this. You talk about Keras, APIs, and so on. And along with this, you probably also need to learn one or two of this modern programming. When I say modern, they have been around for some time, but they have become more important, more relevant, and more useful in the last few years. So can you name 2 languages which have become suddenly important in this world of statistical learning, machine learning, AI, analytics, and so on? Can you name 2 languages which have suddenly become R and Python? Okay, so R and Python, if you have not already learned, you should definitely try to learn and become familiar with that. Okay, not that by learning. It is not that by learning, by doing a certification or by doing a programming language, you become an expert. But that is a kind of a starting point in the journey to become a very valuable person, for a company such as Cognizant or for any of the IT services companies. Now I'll speak for a few minutes about the attitude, which is important to succeed. So if you ask me what is the biggest difference between the time when we started our career several years back and today, it is that in our time, it used to be difficult to find a job. It was finding a job was not easy. It took some time to find a job. But once you got a job, it was rarely the case that anybody would be asked to leave. Our job was secure, and we could continue with the company. We just had to do whatever we were told to do. As long as you're obedient and disciplined and followed our instructions, we were okay. So in our time, getting a job took some time. But once you got a job, we were able to succeed and do well because you just do whatever you're asked to do. In my case, the paradigm changed midway through my career. So after about 15, 20 years, things changed. Today, I'm in the second kind of a world where, you can no longer take anything for granted. You have to change with the times, otherwise you become redundant. Today's situation, as to build on what I just mentioned, today's situation is it is not very difficult to find a job. So many of you will be anxious about finding a job and so on. Now, there are enough companies and enough opportunities as long as you're well prepared. There's no reason why you cannot get a good job. But the more important question is, once you get the job, are you prepared to do well? Do you have the skills and capabilities to do well in the job and continue to do well for a long period of time in your career? That is really the bigger question you need to ask. So again, let me just summarize. Finding a job may be the thing which is, on which your attention is focused today. But what is really more important is how will you do the job after you get the job. So there are certain things which we have noticed among young people, which are very important. If you already have it, just build on that. If you don't have it, see whether, you can make some changes and accordingly, try to improve a little bit. So one of the things we expect, from everybody, not just young people, and though it may look like a very simple ask, but it is not a very easily, available commodity these days. The ability to speak clearly. Suppose you are trying to convey something. Can you convey that clearly without rambling and so on? Now, I'm seeing increasingly that in India, we are getting worse and worse at this. Whether you look at the television channel or you listen to our politicians, listen to our business leaders, you'll find that they are saying so many things, but at the end of the day, what is it they were trying to say? We are not able to understand. So learn the habit of speaking clearly to the point. Suppose there is something you are trying to convey. First, be clear in your mind. What is it you are trying to say? And speak about that with as much clarity as possible. And don't ramble unnecessarily. Speak to the point. And then if somebody wants some more information, give it to them. Rather than giving a long speech, speak briefly, check whether people have understood. Again, if they want some clarification, give the clarification and so on. Writing clearly. Now, I suspect that there'll be much more of, work from home in the coming years. So when you're working from home, when you're working from a remote distance, meetings will not be the only way in which you'll be taking part. You'll also have to circulate documents. So ability to write clearly is also going to be a very important factor. So speaking clearly is very important. Writing clearly is also very important. Then listening carefully. Whenever you are in a meeting, if you join a meeting on time, if you listen carefully to what people are saying, and if you don't follow something, you are able to ask some clarification questions, you'll find that you are doing extremely well in your career. Just taking part in the meeting, being attentive, asking questions and you don't follow something, or you are trying to recheck or revalidate something, is something which will be very, very useful. Then obviously we need some amount of teamwork. Nobody will be doing the job 100% on his or her own. You'll be working with some people together. You'll be delivering something. So when you are working in a team, are you able to show teamwork? So let me ask you. I'm sure your professors have spoken to you about teamwork. You must have had many soft skill workshops and so on. Let me ask you, what do you think in simple terms? What is the meaning of teamwork? At your level, what exactly does this word teamwork mean? Cooperation. So can you explain this word cooperation, Kenneth Roshan? What is the meaning of this word cooperation? How do you demonstrate that you're a team player, Sridevi? How do you demonstrate that? Okay, you are using words which typically, which are used in training programs, by in companies and so on. To me, the best way to understand teamwork is if somebody comes to you and asks for help, are you prepared to help that person? Suppose somebody in your team says, I need some help. Are you willing to help that person? When you try to help somebody, you may find that some of your own tasks are getting delayed, but are you still willing to help somebody? And today, helping somebody essentially means, are you willing to share your knowledge with that other person, which is what some of you also mentioned. So that is really the meaning of teamwork. And then all the instructions will not be given, in a very clear-cut form. There will be some ambiguity. So just because there is ambiguity, we should not say, I cannot do it unless I know for sure what exactly I am expected to do. So you have to still do the work when there is some amount of ambiguity. And last but not the least, we need what is called the growth mindset. It's a very famous concept in psychology. A fixed mindset means you think that I have a certain set of skills and abilities and I need to work with that. Growth mindset means you start thinking that even if I don't know something, I don't have something, I can still learn that. When you have a fixed mindset, you are worried about failure. When you have a growth mindset, you are not worried about failure. You're only thinking, can I learn more? Every failure also becomes a learning opportunity. So growth mindset means you are prepared to try out new things, learn new things. When you join the industry, you'll suddenly find new technologies will emerge, new ways of working will emerge. Are you prepared to move in confidently and start doing those things? Instead, if you say, I need to go through a training program, can you sponsor me for a training program? Then it may be difficult to do that every time. So we expect that, I think all the companies in the industry, IT service industry, they will provide some training to begin with. But as you start working, as new technologies emerge, while still we'll provide a lot of training, but quite a bit of the learning has to be, self-driven. You have to understand what is going on, do some certification course, or maybe pick up some books, or maybe just, use some online facility available and just try out new things, be it the cloud, be it some analytics technique and so on. So that constant urge to learn and keep learning new things, that is extremely important. So let me stop here. I've already spoken for quite some time. Let me first check whether you understood what I said. And if you have not understood any of the points I mentioned, let me respond to those questions first. And you can also ask other questions, which I have not covered. So you can ask me both around what I've covered and what I have not covered. To the extent that I know, I'll be very happy to respond.
Participants, you can post your question in the chat box.
Okay, so this is not really, this session is not really about teaching you any technical thing, but since you asked me the question, let me quickly explain. In supervised learning, what we do is we set up a model like y is equal to a function of x1, x2, x3, and so on. If a new set of variables x1, x2, x3 is provided, you can calculate the value of y. So in supervised learning, we are trying to calculate the output or the value of the dependent variable given the values of independent variables. In the case of unsupervised learning, there is no dependent variable. We may just study the data to understand how to divide them into some logical groups like cluster analysis and so on. So that is the difference between supervised and unsupervised learning. Any other question? by the way, I didn't mention this point explicitly, but every examination is an examination, whether it is your degree examination, your college examination, or a placement test is an examination. So be clear about what kind of things are generally being asked. Be familiar with what, and not just Cognizant. I'm talking about all the IT service companies. What kind of questions are asked? How how to approach these questions and so on. So do become familiar with the kind of you may not know the exact question somebody will ask you, but at least be familiar with the kind of questions which are asked, what you are expected to, how you are expected to deal with them, and so on. So that preparation is also extremely important, especially because when there's an online mode of selection, the written test might actually be very important. So there was a question about how to prepare, for cloud certification. So what I would say is that go into any of the websites, AWS, GCP, Azure. And first in GCP, for example, you can Google Cloud Platform, you can register a free account and then you try out certain things. First, you try certain things. Maybe go to Coursera and try out a course. See whether you're enjoying that. Once you feel that you're enjoying something, this is what you want to do, then you should register for a certification. And by the way, there is, I don't know whether you people are aware of this forum called Nptel. Are you familiar with this Nptel? Nptel. Yeah. Now, Nptel itself is a fantastic resource for all of you. In fact, I would recommend Nptel for the simple reason that they are run, in a very student-friendly way without very high, fees and so on. You just have to register, take an examination, which happens very frequently, and the course fees are also very minimal. So I would probably recommend that start with an Nptel kind of thing. For example, I know of people who have learned Python through Nptel. They have learned TensorFlow through Nptel and so on. There's a whole lot of courses. See whether some of the courses you want to are Google Cloud Platform, for example. Some of the modules are available through Nptel. So just feel around a little bit. Don't waste money unnecessarily. First, try out something, get started, then see whether you're interested, and then do some kind of a certification. So ransomware attack, there is a question on ransomware attack and also about cyber security. Yes, I would say that cyber security is one of the hottest areas today. If you have learned security in college, if you have done a project on cyber security in college, if you have an aptitude for cyber security, please pursue that passion, because cyber security is going to become very, 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 very important. So cyber security is now becoming cyber crime is now becoming a very organized kind of activity. It is not hacking means one or two guys are operating. Cyber crime means whole countries, whole governments, whole groups are operating. So North Korea, for example, is considered to be a very active player in the cyber crime circuit. Russia has been known to indulge in cyber crime and so on. So cyber security and cyber crime and cyber crime is becoming more and more of a threat. So cyber security is extremely important. So please, by all means, if you are interested in this area, learn more about it, become more of an expert, and try to make a career in that area. So ransomware attack is is something in which there are various versions of this attack. One attack is, they will lock up your computer and say, if you don't pay me a ransom, I will not give you access. One of the more extreme cases was this WannaCry attack, which was launched by the North Koreans a few years back. Suddenly people came and found their desktop is locked. And if you don't pay some money through some, cryptocurrency or something, you will not get back your access. So that is really what made people become very familiar with with the world of cyber crimes and so on. So there was a question about, how do you adapt to changing situations? I think the difference between adaptable people and the people who are a bit rigid is the rigid people, they are trying to define the environment very precisely. And they are also measuring everything in terms of success and failure. Whereas, the people who are more adaptable, they know that everything cannot be defined very clearly before you start doing something. So they are prepared to accept that level of, ambiguity. And B, they also know that when they take a step forward, there could be a setback. But their philosophy is what is called fail fast. Let me do something and try out and fail fast, so that I can use the failure as a learning and do something different. Whereas the non-adaptable people, what they will do is they will wait and wait and wait for perfection, and they'll find that the time has passed. So to be adaptable, you have. Can you hear me now? Oh, no problem, no problem. Thank you. Was that Swatish? Yeah, thank you very much. So, where was I when I got muted? Okay, about the. Okay. Yeah. So we discussed ransomware and WannaCry. Then we were talking about this ambiguous, and so I said cyber security is extremely important. Then we are talking about adaptability. So I think all of us need to understand that in today's world, it's very difficult to predict and forecast anything accurately. Things will keep changing, and we should take some steps forward and then see what happens, and then make some changes rather than wait for perfection. So the best companies practice what is called fail fast. Try experiments and see how they work, and then make changes. If you wait for a perfect outcome, if you wait for perfect understanding of the situation, it may become too late. So you have to keep moving fast, and you have to keep learning. That is really the meaning of an adaptable mindset. So I'll put it like this: people who are very afraid of failure, they will have a problem in being adaptable. So one of the important requirements of being adaptable is don't worry about failure. Failure is a good thing. It tells us that we have to make some changes. Whereas people who don't want failure, they will never do anything, and at the end, and they will find that they have missed a big opportunity to do something very, very different. And if you see the history of companies, there are many companies, they didn't try anything new. Whereas the new guys who come in, and there's one thing about failure you all need to understand. So let me ask you this very important question. When are we prepared to take more risk? When we are young or when we are old? When are we prepared to take more risk? When we are young or when we are old? When we are young, we are prepared to take a lot of risk because we have nothing to lose. All right? Resources are limited, more risk. But as companies become bigger and older, they become confined to the bureaucratic procedures and so on, and they find it difficult to take risks. So even though all of us have to grow old with time, but we should remain young at heart so that we can keep trying new things, keep experimenting, and so on. Okay, any other questions? Okay, Swatish. I think people are generally, they had enough of me. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And I like to wish all the students a very bright future. So as I mentioned, uh, what is important is that stay focused on your studies. Uh, Keep understanding the concepts and fundamentals very well. Start doing some of these things like go into the cloud and do some small experiments, maybe do some certification if it is possible, or take an Nptel exam and so on. Keep yourself busy learning new things, and as and when, and generally understand how this placement process happen in terms of the tests and so on. And when the tests actually begin, be prepared to write the test well, and during the interviews, learn to speak with a bit more energy and use your voice to your advantage. So do all these things. The future is very bright for young people like you. It is really up to you to grab, this opportunity and move forward. So let me hand you over back to Professor Prabhu and Swatish, and they will bring the session to an end. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Swatish. I feel very glad to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of
Jennifer, you are muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Sorry for that. Okay. I feel really very glad to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of the management, HOD, staff members, and our participants in the session. True guidance is like a candle in the dark, and when Senior Director directs us, it surely makes a remark. Thank you for joining us, sir. The way you connected the past and evolution, the growth and technology was really impressive and very informative. I'm sure our participants would have been highly benefited because of the remarkable webinar in our series. I also thank the participants for your active participation and coordination. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Prabhu. Can I leave now?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank
you very much.
Today's session.
Thank you,
I will call you later, sir.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.